Friends, on Sunday, October 26th, this is a sensation. The Belgorod Dam has been blown up. At this very moment, there is a total evacuation of Belgorod. The dam has been blown up. There is a threat of flooding. Thousands of residents are leaving their homes. The structure of the Belgorod reservoir has suffered serious damage. The governor is furious. He reports that this is not the last strike. There will be more. Yesterday
was a day in the Tregorod region as a result of an attack by the country. Is this
an FSB sabotage, or is it a strike by the armed forces of Ukraine? We break down everything that is known in this new alarming blog.
Friends, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dasha Shaslivaya, and let's get started. Write in the comments what you think about this. So information has emerged that the armed forces of Ukraine struck the dam of the Belgorod reservoir, and that right now there is a total evacuation underway in Belgorod and the region.
Absolutely unbelievable. Incredible. In the moment.
In the city, an evacuation has just been announced for residents living near the dam. The dam of the Belgorod reservoir has sustained very serious damage as a result of the strike by the armed forces of Ukraine. According to local authorities, its destruction could flood the homes of tens of thousands of Russians. The governor of Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, did not rule out new strikes on the reservoir dam and announced the evacuation of Belgorod residents living under the threat of flooding. The situation is complicated, the situation is unclear because there is information emerging that perhaps this was even an FSB sabotage, that Russian special services are using this situation to mobilize even more Russians against Ukraine. It is possible that employees of the Russian special services were involved in the sabotage of the reservoir in the Bogorodsk region. Everyone recognizes this FSB signature. Friends, let us know in the comments what you think about this. All right?
Got it on camera.
At this very moment, several streets in populated areas of the region where tens of thousands of Russians live may be experiencing flooding. Gladkov reported that residents of the region who may be at risk of flooding and have no other options for temporary accommodation are being offered evacuation to temporary shelters in Belgorod. Several buildings with technical equipment have been damaged, the lifting mechanisms of one of the outlet gates have been affected, and the crest of the dam has been very seriously damaged. The reservoir is located in the Belgorod and Shebekino districts of the Belgorod region of Russia. Friends, let us know in the comments what you think about this. In the meantime, we have some more information to share with you. Other analysts report that Ukrainian armed forces launched a missile strike on the dam of the Belgorod reservoir. According to other analysts, the dam was attacked by several HIMARS missiles. As a result of the attack, buildings with technical equipment, the lifting mechanisms of one of the spillway gates, and the crest of the dam were damaged. There is a risk of flooding in the nearest populated area. However, there is also information emerging that once again this could have been done by Russian special services. Moreover, Gladkov reported that this is not the last strike. Perhaps he actually knows something important that Russians simply don't. Friends, the attack on the Belgorod reservoir, the dam explosion, a series of strikes in the Rostov, Belgorod, and Bryansk regions. The Smolensk, Bryansk, and Belgorod thermal power plants have been attacked. Blackouts in the regions, as well as an attack on a thermal power plant in the Moscow region. We will discuss this on Sunday, October 26th, with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutayev. Right now, at this very moment, something just happened that caught my attention. What was that over there? I could have sworn I saw something move, but I'm not entirely sure. Damn, that was completely unexpected, unbelievable. I can hardly believe my own eyes. I wasn't prepared for that at all, and it's left me feeling shocked. I need a moment to process what I just witnessed, because it was truly astonishing.
Next, I greet you and I greet our esteemed viewers. It is my pleasure to do so. Ukraine from 50. If between 5 and 10 oil refineries are left behind as nothing more than craters, and if, in addition, a couple of the iconic Kremlin towers are blown up and completely destroyed by Tomahawk missiles, then at that point they will truly and deeply understand the consequences of these actions. At that point, it will really be necessary to start negotiations. So, here's a free piece of advice for President Trump's administration, and for Trump himself. Only after such tough actions will Russia come to its senses, when they realize that not just 2 or 3 Kremlin towers have been hit, but that they'll actually be getting shelled and attacked right inside the Kremlin. That's why I believe that only in this way can the Kremlin's behavior, the behavior of these arrogant, corrupt criminals, these Russian fascists, be brought into line. There are no other ways. This has already been proven by both time and experience.
Dear audience, let us know where you're watching us from and how you're doing. We know that emergency power outages and scheduled blackouts are currently happening across our country. Let us know if you have electricity, heat, and water. Tell us where you're from, sending all rays of kindness and light your way. I'm sending them to every corner of our beautiful country. Friends, let's hold on. We will definitely win. Ruslan Kamnivich, it's clear that the European Union has now officially adopted the 19th package of sanctions. Thank you very much to them for Russia. And it also restricts the movement of Russian diplomats. So Reuters is publishing the details of the 19th package of sanctions against Russia. The new measures concern the import of LNG. They also target the shadow fleet, banks, crypto assets, and the circumvention of sanctions through third countries. Starting in 2027, a phased ban on the import of Russian LNG will be introduced. By the way, this is important, but of course, starting only in 2027 is rather late. 5 Russian banks and 4 financial institutions from Belarus and Kazakhstan have come under sanctions. What do you think?
They are currently expanding, and they fully understand the problem. There are third countries, nations not directly involved in the main conflict, through which Russia can quite painlessly, although the supply chain might take a bit longer, still receive or send certain things, such as natural resources, financial assets, or spare parts for various industries, whether those are related to weapons, drones, or something else. This situation allows Russia to maintain access to these essential materials and components, even in the face of obstacles. But despite all this, we see that Russia has been able to resolve its issues. They continue to fight. They are not leaving the front lines exposed. And this is primarily because Putin and Russia are finding ways and routes. And in fact, these ways and routes are known to the whole world. Europe knows about them, and so does America. And as long as no truly decisive and effective measures are taken to comprehensively block and restrict the routes and pathways laid through third countries, if these are not completely shut down and no serious and sustained sanctions pressure is applied against them, Russia will continue to fight regardless. Here, decisive action is needed, and we still have some expectations and hopes when they start acting correctly. And this 19th package contains many correct decisions.
One of the most important decisions is that the sanctions affected 117 ships of the Shadow Fleet out of a total of 558, and also banned the reinsurance of sold Russian ships and airplanes for 5 years. Shlamkamgich, these Shadow Fleet vessels that unfortunately are still operating today, here are more sanction measures against them. To what extent will this actually de facto stop Russia's Shadow Fleet? Because we see how France detains a vessel, then releases it, detains it again, and releases it again. All of this is happening as if, everyone is just turning a blind eye.
Well, it must be said that Russia really does have a considerable number of people they have bought in Europe, lawyers and individuals who possess quite a serious influence on politics. And here, Russia is not yet bled dry. Measures are only just beginning to take effect against it. As for the elimination or neutralization of this shadow fleet, Brian mentioned here a total of 550 vessels in all. They simply need to be neutralized. They need to be stopped. And if necessary, just cut them up for scrap metal and leave them. Every time, for every violation, that's it. They arrest the ship, put it in the harbor, and it doesn't operate anymore. Then in this particular situation, there is really no need to appeal to India or China or to try to impose any restrictions or sanctions against them. The so-called shadow front, as well as the fleet, needs to be completely and thoroughly eliminated. After that, I believe that Russia's problems with oil and gas trade will, in all likelihood, be resolved. The right actions are indeed being taken at this time, as long as we also make sure to address the various corruption schemes, the numerous agents of influence, and the many law firms that operate everywhere throughout America and Europe, working both openly and behind the scenes for Russia and in Russia's interests. We need to work against these individuals and organizations as well, because they really do engage in corrupt, unethical, and illegal practices that undermine our societies. It should also be noted that in addition to transporting, for example, oil and gas, these specialized ships can also carry drones. They have the ability to approach to within a range of approximately 30 to 50 kilometers from the shoreline of a country, positioning themselves just off the coast. From this location near the shore, they can launch a swarm of drones into the territory of any nation and then begin attacking targets within that country. And who can prove to me that Russia isn't already doing this? especially after drones have appeared over Germany and Denmark, not to mention Poland, Romania, and the Baltic countries. That's why we need to take decisive action regarding these ships, the oil and gas carriers, and then solving this problem will become very significant.
For the first time, the British Navy, acting on a direct order from NATO, intercepted a Russian warship in its waters, reports Sky News. The destroyer HMS Duncan and a Wildcat helicopter stopped the large anti-submarine ship Vice Admiral Kulikov in the North Sea, with support from the French Navy and a Dutch NH-90 helicopter. What do you think is behind such decisiveness?
I can't say with certainty what the specific reason for this particular event was because, quite frankly, I simply do not have access to that information at this time. However, in this context, I think there is something else that is extremely important to consider. The fact that they actually had the courage and determination to dare to do this, to take the bold step of stopping a warship. And somehow, if they did indeed manage to stop it, they must have made some very specific demands, perhaps invoked certain maritime regulations or legal provisions, although, to be honest, I don't know exactly what those might have been. I don't think the Russian ship actually allowed them to conduct a thorough and complete inspection, but the very fact that the ship was stopped and that both Britain and France were directly and actively involved in this particular situation clearly shows that little by little, step by step, the resolve, determination, and commitment of these European countries is gradually starting to move forward and gain momentum. Unfortunately, as you mentioned here, they have announced and stated that they plan to completely and totally get rid of, eliminate, and phase out Russian gas by the year 2027, which is a significant and ambitious goal for them to achieve. This marks a major shift in energy policy and demonstrates a strong willingness to change. They are moving slowly. But despite all that, it must be said they are making progress. I mean, Europe.
Everyone is discussing that this was a military threat. That is, the UK Minister for the Armed Forces, El Carnes, commented on the incident. He stated that the Navy is ready to respond to any threats from Russian warships. The operation to monitor the Russian ship lasted from last Friday, October 17th, to Sunday, October 19th. The Netherlands and the French Navy were also involved in monitoring the Vice Admiral Kulikov. The Netherlands and the French Navy. This is serious. The Admiral Kulikov, a large anti-submarine destroyer of Project 1155, is named after the Soviet naval commander Vice Admiral Nikolai Kulikov. According to NATO classification, it is a Udaloy-class destroyer. Schlang Pagish, so it turns out these are again Russian operations against our allies, against NATO, and we noticed the submarine that ended up off the coast of Brittany in France. Why? A viewer of the channel wrote that this is actually all about Russian military provocations. Varshavyanka-class submarines, and now here you go, Vice Admiral Kulikov, and all of this is, again, very serious Russian provocations.
Well, it really should be said here, the submarine surfaced over there, meaning, of course, the Russian one, and they reported that there was a fire inside. Apparently, there was a diesel leak somewhere within the vessel, and they showed this particular surfacing specifically from that at least angle. And here, the appearance of a warship, an anti-submarine ship, indicates that most likely from this ship, they are scanning underwater areas. They have all sorts of equipment like this, not only because they want to assist the Russian ship, meaning the submarines, but most likely they are also scanning the movements of NATO and European submarines, monitoring and observing them. And so it must be said, Russia is escalating the situation. Russia is acting provocatively, behaving in this way, with their statements that they can stand up to, that they are already opposing NATO countries fighting with Europe. And this, let's say, signal of Russia's readiness to fight against an arsenal like NATO's forces is directly related to this, as is the appearance of the submarine. We don't know, at least I don't know. Maybe they wanted to say, look, the submarine surfaced. They explained they had some problems there, but in reality, it was to show something. See, we're right under your nose, swimming underwater on the seabed and ocean floor, and you know nothing about it. We surfaced, and maybe they did it on purpose, just to show off. So, Dasha, in any case, I like that the European side, in response to that threat, which comes from Russia, They have started to react. They are slowly beginning to realize that there is no need to be afraid. They need to stop it, they need to check it, they need to drive it out of the trajectory of European countries' interests. And only in this way will it be possible to stop Russia. And this will be the brazenness, the audacity of Russian behavior, whether it's ships or submarines or planes that violate airspace. They need to be dealt with firmly. Erdogan showed the whole world how it's done and how to handle it.
Yes, that's very important. And I would like our audience write in the comments what should be done with Russia's submarines, with the fleet of the Russian Federation, and how to respond to Russian provocations. Write in the comments, like this video, and tell us where you're watching from. I'm very interested in the geography of our viewers. Slava Mikhailovich, there is also some very important news that I can't help but discuss with you. And these are such important actions taking place in Europe. A series of large-scale sabotage operations in Europe against refineries that are currently cooperating with the Russian Federation. In Bratislava, a refinery owned by the Hungarian company MOL, a pro-Russian Hungarian company that processes Russian oil delivered via the Druzhba pipeline, is on fire. One. Two European refineries at once, both of which were receiving Russian oil, caught fire on the same day, which was October 20th. At that time, there was a fire at the main oil refinery in Hungary, owned by the same pro-Russian Hungarian company, in the city of Százhalombatta, Hungary. This refinery was also processing oil supplied through the southern branch of the Druzhba pipeline. In addition, on October 20th, an explosion occurred at the Lukoil oil refinery in Ploiești in southern Romania. And now today, the third strike, the refinery in Bratislava, also belongs to the Hungarian, or more precisely, pro-Russian company MOL. What do you think?
That's good news. I think finally the Hungarian partisans have started to take action and get to work. They understand that it's impossible to get rid of Orban. And wherever this happens, be it in Romania, Slovakia, or anywhere else, there will always be a Hungarian trace left behind. Why? Because this legacy, this Russian legacy in Europe, comes exclusively from Orban. It's Orban who, like a hen on a wire mesh, is quietly scattering these eggs across Europe, and the Russians too, spreading their narratives. And the driving force that lies behind all of these important actions and various initiatives is, quite precisely, none other than Orban himself. And I wouldn't say Hungary, because the Hungarians themselves, the Hungarian people, can no longer carry this burden any further. And that's why I expect that these, let's say, guerrilla strikes against Orban's interests, yes, I mean Orban and Russia, will continue, and eventually they will lead to what they are supposed to lead to. At the very least, to the point where the citizens of Hungary will take to the streets and demand Orban's resignation. If they don't do this, then just like in Russian cities, they will end up standing in long lines and receiving only 20 liters of gasoline or diesel fuel per person. If they do not want things to end up with such long lines, I mean specifically in Hungary way, then they need to take action to prevent this situation. They need to intensify and speed up Orban's downfall and go on the offensive. Only by attacking in this way can they stop this corrupt Orban.
Slava Mikhailovich, yet another remarkable statement. The head of Poland's foreign ministry suggested that Ukrainian forces disable the Druzhba oil pipeline. Poland's foreign minister Radosław Sikorski is addressing his Hungarian counterpart. He suggested to Peter Szijjarto that Ukrainian forces destroy the Druzhba oil pipeline, which supplies oil to Hungary. I hope that your brave compatriot, Major Magyar, will finally succeed in destroying the pipeline that fuels Putin's war machine. What do you think?
Sikorski is just great. I like him. He gives such well thought out and truly necessary advice to the Americans too, and now you see to the Hungarians as well. That's why it really needs to be thoroughly dismantled. After all, there are already missiles, there are already capabilities, much better ones. Magyar paved the way. He showed the routes along which missiles can be used. They're 100, if not 1,000 times faster than drones. These are the routes we need to follow, dismantle everything so that oil deliveries stop completely. This oil resource shouldn't be going anywhere, and then that would be very good news. I think we should give Sikorski a 5 for his excellent ideas.
That's also a great topic. The fuel crisis has engulfed Siberia, the Far East, and the occupied Crimea. In several regions of Siberia and the Far East, restrictions have been imposed on gasoline sales. No more than 20 liters per person. In Krasnokamensk, Russia's uranium center, there is no fuel at all. And in the occupied Crimea, right after gasoline, diesel has now disappeared as well. The exchange price for AI-92 has reached record levels. And now analysts are already writing that gasoline is running out all over Russia from Kaliningrad to Vladivostok. People are standing in line for hours to get fuel. In many regions, they don't sell more than 20 liters per person. Cards and coupons are being introduced everywhere. In the occupied Crimea, diesel fuel has disappeared. Hello, welcome back to the Soviet Union. And they've already published statistics. I think all the media have shared this, that 85% of oil refineries across Russia have been affected. And this was done by Ukraine, and this situation has led to a fuel crisis. And what they wrote is that the fuel crisis has affected almost 90% of Russia's regions, unfortunately, except for Moscow. Shlankamdish, what do you say?
Well, I can confidently say that things are only going to get worse. And some people are asking, why is that? It seems like the drones don't even reach the Far East or the remote eastern regions of Siberia. I want to explain this to you, dear viewers. The thing is, diesel and gasoline from the European oil refineries were being supplied to those regions. And now, currently, when many oil refineries in the European part are being destroyed, the portion of petroleum products that used to be sent to the Far East is now required to be redirected back to the European part. That's why they're experiencing a shortage. It all makes sense. It's logically sound. It seems like, well, it's the Far East. Who even sees them? Let them just sit there. From the standpoint of Russian logic. But I think soon they'll just be sitting idle altogether because of the missiles. And Trump sent his regards. He said he couldn't care less who is launching strikes with what missiles. And we remember, starting with Biden, shoot there, do not shoot here, make use of this, apply that as needed, and so on. So now their hands are untied, and that's essentially a weapon in itself. I don't think that, say, new types of weapons or tomahawks will immediately appear in Ukraine, even if they're provided. Sooner or later, they will be supplied. Well, I don't think there will be big headlines about it. Shipments from the state of Magava have been sent to Ukraine. I think this will be done quietly, but it will definitely happen. So everything is fine, Dasha. Everything is going according to plan. Things will get worse from here. We can confidently tell Russians things will get worse from here. Today they're giving out 20 liters, but tomorrow they might not give out anything at all. Your
words, may God hear them. Reports from Russia indicate a massive missile and drone attack by the armed forces of Ukraine. Notably, a military plant in Kopeysk, Chelyabinsk region was attacked. This plant produces ammunition for tube artillery, naval artillery, tanks, and self-propelled guns. Next, Ryazan and Skopin were attacked. There were explosions and drones struck a substation in the Bryansk region, causing a blackout. A thermal power plant is on fire in the Smolensk region, blackout there as well. Storm Shadow and ATACMS missiles struck the Bryansk chemical plant. Friendly drones raided Makachkala and Mordovia. There, the Dak Nefte product transshipment complex and the Saransky mechanical plant were attacked. Also an oil refinery. A missile threat has been declared in the Leningrad region. Restrictions have been imposed at Pulkovo airport. Moreover, the railway on the St. Petersburg-Pskov line was blown up, according to reports. All military logistics there have been halted. While you read the news, it's like a song. Ruslan Kamdish.
I can. It is quite reasonable to predict that once Ukraine addresses and resolves the important issues of oil refining and its associated processes, as well as transportation, it will definitely turn its attention to the railways. This is a very important part of both Russia and the Soviet Union as a whole. Railways play the most crucial role in logistics above all else. It's a big and straightforward country. I think this is actually a kind of clear harbinger of the transition from, let's say, attacks, specifically attacks on oil refineries. They are already actively moving on to targeting factories that are producing ammunition and important components. There will definitely be strikes in Tatarstan where drones are manufactured. I'm sure that they won't leave even a spot untouched because they can still reach them with missiles. We see that quite deliberately and step by step, Ukraine's military and strategic capabilities are steadily increasing over time. Let's say the knowledge of Ukrainian military personnel is also improving. And I see that Everything, all the developments and ongoing events is clearly heading toward things getting even worse for Russia. And Ukraine, on the other hand, will definitely, without a doubt, just completely destroy the logistics, disrupt and destroy the infrastructure, making it unusable. And of course, now winter is coming soon, and it will be cold not only in Ukrainian homes, but also in many other places affected by the conflict. I want to remind everyone, Ukrainian winters are much milder than Russian winters. And then they will know what it means to strike and drain the life from the residents. I think the Russians will have to and experience this if they don't urgently stop, end the war, and leave Ukrainian territory.
Sam Kadic, for the finale, has prepared an important topic for you. Just yesterday, I spoke with Dmitry Ilyich Gordon, and he doesn't believe this information. He thinks that the Russian opposition channels are not telling the whole story because he doesn't believe in principle that something like this is possible. I wanted to discuss this with you. There are raids in Moscow, according to Russian opposition media. Men of conscription age are being detained and in handcuffs sent to the assembly point on Ugreshskaya, according to human rights activists. Using facial recognition systems, conscripts are being caught between the metro stations Novokuznetskaya, Tretyakovskaya, Kievskaya, Volskaya, Barikadnaya, and Timiryazevskaya all over the city. Even those who are exempt from service due to illness or have been removed from the register to move are being forcibly sent to the assembly point. They are being sent to the army as quickly as possible. The Moscow metro has truly become dangerous, according to Russian opposition media. But Dmitry Ilyich doesn't believe this information. He says that it's impossible for there to be any raids in Moscow. Why, when there's the Far East and other poorer regions where there won't be any kind of protests, what do you say to that?
Well, no, the Far East is already empty. In all the regions, there are no longer any young people left for them to draft. If anyone is left, it's the children of those administrative workers who basically they are already getting their children, relatives, and brothers exempted from this criminal behavior of the authorities. And that's why I have no doubt that eventually it will reach both St. Petersburg and Moscow. And that's why I can confidently say this, because they're also rounding people up in the regions. I think these signals have reached Moscow as well. I have no doubt about it.
Dear viewers, please like this video and write a few kind words in support of Ukraine in the comments. Today, together with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev, we discussed the European Union and US sanctions against Russia, new acts of sabotage in Europe against pro-Russian entities, and of course, blackouts in Russia, attacks on railways and oil refineries. Ruslan Kamdic, thank you, and as always, see you again very soon.
All the best. Take care.